The sun was unforgiving that afternoon, casting long, jagged shadows across the cracked earth of Dustwater Hollow, a forgotten town on the edge of nowhere. The wind rolled in lazy gusts, carrying flecks of dust and the scent of sun-scorched wood. Time in Dustwater didn't move forward. It drifted like tumbleweed, spinning stories across dirt roads few cared to remember. A lone rider approached from the east. His hat was tilted low over his eyes, brim worn thin from sun and storms. His coat was a patchwork of time-stitched leather and faded wool that told of long rides and longer silences. A faded scar peeked from under his chin, but it was his. Stillness that made people uneasy. His name was Jed Carter, a cowboy with no brand, no companions. And the past he never spoke of Dot as Jed dismounted his horse near the crooked saloon porch. The old wooden sign creaked in protest, swaying from rusted. Chains above. He tied the reins loosely to a post and patted the side of his horse, Dusty, whose ribs threatened to show through his thin hide. The horse gave a tired snort. Both had seen better days. Just as Jed turned toward the saloon doors, he heard the softest voice barely more than a breath. "Please, mister." "Just one coin." He looked down Dot. She stood no higher than his waist. Hair tangled and frayed like forgotten doll strings, her skin baked tan under layers of grime. She wore an oversized man's coat cinched with twine and boots that looked stolen. From a scarecrow. Her hands were calloused, her knees bruised, but her eyes burned like winter candles. Defiant, pleading, and flickering all at once. "I'll polish your boots," she added quickly. "Real nice. Only one coin, I promise." Jed blinked. Dot, in a town like this, desperation clung to people like sweat. But this girl, she wasn't begging the way drunks did. She wasn't trembling. She stood her ground with a kind of small, sturdy pride that caught Jed off guard. He looked at his boots, caked in road dust and cracked at the seams. Not worth polishing. Then again, neither was this town. But something about her tone, it wasn't hunger that twisted her voice. It was something older, something heavier. "You polish boots for a living?" he asked, his voice low, gravelly. She nodded fast, then hesitated. "Well, sorta, only when I got rags. I got one today." She held up a torn cloth that looked more like a dead leaf than fabric. "I'm real good at it, mister. Please, just one coin." Jed reached into his pocket. His fingers brushed against 2 coins and a folded piece of paper, his sister's last letter, unread for years. He pulled 1 coin out and held it up at her. Eyes sparkled like stars over an empty desert. But before he could drop it into her hand, she whispered something more. "It's for my brother. He's real sick. Needs medicine." Jed froze. That changed everything. Her fingers didn't twitch. She wasn't reaching for the coin. She just stared at it like it might turn into a miracle if she stayed perfectly still. "What's wrong with him?" Jed asked, lowering his hand slightly. She hesitated. Her lip trembled. She looked past him, over his shoulder, into the nothing of the dusty horizon. "Fever. Won't stop shaking. Been days. Where's your folks?" She shook her head. "Gone. Fire. 2 years now." Jed looked around. No one was watching, but he could feel the weight of a dozen glances from behind curtains and swinging doors. Towns like this didn't need walls to talk. "You got a name?" he asked. Clara May." Jed flicked the coin to her. She caught it midair like it was gold. She didn't smile, just clutched it tight to her chest. "Boots?" she asked, kneeling already. Jed stepped back. "Keep the coin." "But I said I'd polish 'em. I don't lie." "I believe you." She looked up, confused. "Then why?" he shrugged. "Boots don't matter. Brothers do." Her face twisted for a second, like she might cry. But she didn't. Instead, she stood, wiped her cheek with her sleeve, and whispered, "Thank you." She turned and walked briskly down the street, barefoot under her scarecrow boots, past the well, the blacksmith, and into the setting sun. Jed watched her go. He'd seen hundreds of beggars, some slick, some broken, some angry, but none like her. Clara May didn't ask for help to survive. She asked for help to save someone else, and that ... That was rare. The evening wind swept low through Dustwater Hollow, carrying with it the scent of burning pine, old tobacco, and distant rain. That would never come. The sky bled crimson behind the hills, casting long shadows over broken fences and shuttered windows. The town was fading, the way forgotten places do not all at once, but slowly, like a ghost forgetting itself. Jed Carter sat at the saloon bar, untouched whiskey in front of him. He wasn't a drinking man, not anymore. Not since the fire. Not since. He stared into the glass as if the burn of it might speak back, but it didn't. What did echo in his mind? Though was the girl's voice. Clara May. It's for my brother. Children lied. Jed knew that. They lied to get food, to survive. He'd seen it in towns from Arizona to Wyoming, but this one hadn't lied. She hadn't begged for herself. She'd begged with dignity, and her eyes, those eyes, like small, flickering candles in a dark room. They haunted him more than the whiskey could drown. Jed stood, left a coin on the bar, and stepped out into the twilight. The street was quieter now. Dogs barked in the distance. The saloon piano had long stopped playing. In towns like this, people slept early, or they drank themselves into silence. Jed wandered aimlessly at first, boots crunching over gravel and dust, hat tipped low against the wind. Then instinct took over. He found his way to the well. That's where she had disappeared past. From there, his boots led him down a thin alley between the back of the general store and the old church. It was there he heard it, a soft humming, cracked and off-key, like a lullaby sung through exhaustion. He turned the corner and found her. Clara May was crouched beside an open stable door, holding a chipped bowl of river water and pressing it gently to the forehead of a small boy no older than 4. He lay curled under an old quilt, face pale and glistening with sweat. His breathing was shallow, uneven. Clara dipped a cloth in the bowl and dabbed his temples, singing under her breath, "Lay down, little brother. The stars watch you sleep. Mama's not far now. Her love's buried deep." Jed didn't mean to intrude, but the song froze him. It was the kind of song a child shouldn't know how to make up. Too full of grief. Too full of love. She noticed him after a moment. Her hand flew to the boy's chest instinctively. "Don't worry," Jed said, keeping his voice low. "I ain't here to hurt anyone." She nodded, wary. "You followed me," she said. It wasn't a question, more like an observation. Not fearful. "Just tired. Wanted to see where my coin went." She blinked. "To medicine. I told you the truth." Jed knelt a few feet away. "I see that now." She looked down at the boy. "He's been sick 3 nights now. No food, no fire. Just shakes." "And dreams? Tommy?" She nodded. Jed studied the boy. Bones too sharp, cheeks too hollow. This was sickness, sure, but hunger too. And fear. "Where'd you get the medicine?" "Old Doc Whitley left town last month. But Miss June at the pharmacy still keeps things behind the counter. I gave her the coin. She gave me powder. Said it'd help the fever some." Jed was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, "You live here?" She nodded again. "Used to sleep by the church steps. But then someone kicked over our things. So we found the stable. Ain't much, but no one bothers us here." He looked around. Broken hay scattered over cold stone floors. 1 cracked oil lamp. 2 tin cups and a book. A children's book with the cover torn off, pages barely held together. She followed his gaze. "I read it to him, so he don't forget Mama's voice." Jed felt something in his chest tighten, something he hadn't felt in years. Maybe since the day they buried his own baby sister. He reached into his coat and pulled out a packet. Got this at the diner. Stew and bread. It's still warm. She stared at it, then at him. Why? 'Cause I ain't hungry, he lied. She stepped forward slowly, took the bundle with both hands, then set it beside her brother. She didn't eat first. She fed him a spoonful. He coughed, swallowed, and murmured something in his sleep. Only. Then did she take a bite herself. Jed leaned against the stable wall. The breeze rattled the rafters above. You said your parents died in a fire? He asked softly. She nodded, chewing slowly. 2 winters ago. Stove exploded. Caught the whole shack. I was out fetching water. Came back and it was all orange. Silence. Jed closed his eyes. A memory surged. The smoke, the screams, the flames licking up the porch, and his own hands blistered from trying to pull her out. He shook his head. Not now. After that, Clara said, voice steady, no one wanted us. Pastor tried to help but left. Sheriff said we'd be better off in the orphanage. You didn't go? They tried. Took Tommy. I ran after the wagon. Screamed so loud my throat bled. Hid inside it when they stopped to feed the horses. Stayed with him all night till we both ran away again. You're a tough little coyote, Jed murmured. She smiled. Just a flicker. That's what Mama used to say. They sat in silence a while longer. Tommy's breathing slowed, steadied. The stew was gone. The wind had turned cold. Jed stood. I'll come by tomorrow. Bring a blanket. Some matches, too. She looked up, startled. You don't have to. I know. Then why would you? He paused. Because someone once gave me a coin. And I never paid it forward, Clara blinked. Her voice was barely audible. Thank you, Mr. Name's Jed. Thank you, Mr. Jed. He tipped his hat and walked back toward the saloon, the night pressing down like a thick curtain. Behind him. But this time, it wasn't just silence in the air, it was something else, something alive, hope. And the sound of a little girl humming lullabies to save a life. The sun didn't rise in Dustwater Hollow. It dragged itself up like an old man, reluctant, aching, gray behind clouds that never gave rain. The streets woke slowly, boots crunching. Gravel, shutters creaking open, a few horses snorting steam into the cool dawn air. But no one greeted the morning. They simply endured it. Jed Carter stood near the edge of town, just outside the blacksmith's shed, his hands deep in his coat, pockets and a blanket under one arm. He'd already been to the bakery, trading the last of his silver for a loaf of hard, dry bread and a small jar of honey. The kind of sweetness kids remembered longer than hunger. He made his way toward the church stable, boots quiet on the frost-bitten dirt, his breath fogged in the air. The kind of cold that made wood crack and bones ache. Inside the stable, Clara May was awake, already tending to Tommy. She was cradling his head and whispering a story, something about giants who lived in clouds and through thunderstorms when they cried. Jed paused outside the door. Listening, Tommy murmured weakly, but his fever had broken some. His color was returning, just a little pink in the cheeks where there was once only ash gray. The boy's chest rose more evenly now. You got lucky, Jed said gently, stepping into the stable. Clara turned quickly, her back instinctively shielding her brother, but when she saw it was Jed, she relaxed. A little. You came back, she said, a touch of surprise in her voice. Jed nodded and handed her the bundle. Blanket, bread, and some honey. Not much, but better than prayers. Clara unwrapped it, eyes wide at the honey jar. For real? She whispered. Jed chuckled. You ever see fake honey? She dipped her finger into the golden syrup and gently pressed it to her brother's lips. Tommy licked it, then smiled faintly. In his sleep, Clara looked at Jed and said, "That's the first smile he's made in 3 days." Jed said nothing. Instead, he crouched and poured a small portion of bread into a metal bowl nearby, watching Clara rip it into smaller pieces. "You two ever been to the doctor?" he asked. "No doctor," she replied. "Just Miss June. She's got medicine books. But she's old, and she says she don't know much no more." Jed frowned. "Town like this needs more than a dusty book." Clara shrugged. "Town like this needs a heart first." That answer struck him deeper than he expected. He was about to respond when he heard the heavy sound of boots behind him. More than one pair. He turned. 3 men stood outside the stable. 2 deputies and Sheriff Griggs himself. Griggs was a tall, hawk-eyed man in his 50s with a thick mustache and a gut that hung over his belt like an old badge of honor. His coat was pressed, boots polished, and fingers heavy with rings, none of them wedding bands. "Morning, Carter," Griggs said, not kindly. "Didn't figure you for a charity man." Jed stood slowly. "Didn't figure you for the kind to care." Griggs ignored the jab. His eyes drifted past Jed to Clara and the boy behind him. "What's this? Found yourself a little family to adopt?" "Just lending a hand." Griggs spat on the ground. "She ain't got no home. No guardians. That boy's been a health hazard for a week." "Town's got rules about vagrants." Jed stiffened. "They're children." "They're strays," Griggs replied. "Cute ones, sure, but no different than sick dogs. They draw trouble, steal food, attract folk who don't belong." Jed took a step forward. "You mean me?" Griggs's deputy shifted nervously. "Mean anyone who forgets this town's run by law, not by pity." Clara stood now, arms tight around Tommy. "We never stole. Never begged from no one but him." Griggs laughed. "That makes it better? What do you expect us to do, girl? Let you rot behind our church and hope angels drop soup on your lap?" Yet's eyes flashed. "I got enough bullets for 3. You feel like gambling on which one's yours?" Griggs narrowed his eyes. "That a threat?" Jed didn't blink. "That's a fact." There was a long silence. One of the deputies coughed. The other shifted his rifle uneasily. Griggs finally waved his hand. "Let them freeze." "But when someone finds that boy dead, I'll have to clean up the mess. And I won't be polite about it." He turned and walked away, his boots thumping louder than the threats he left behind. The stable went quiet again. Clara sat down slowly, visibly shaken. But she didn't cry. She just held Tommy tighter, resting her chin on his hair. Jed knelt beside her. "He comes back, he won't just talk." "I know," she whispered. "You got somewhere else to go?" She shook her head. "I tried the Ridge Cave. Coyotes live there now. Tried the train yard. Men live there now. The woods, too cold. This is the only place left." Jed felt helpless, and he hated it. He stood and paced the stable, thinking. The wooden beams overhead groaned in the wind. The dust danced in golden shafts of light cutting through the cracks. "I can get you out," he said finally. Clara looked up. "Out where?" "Out of town, north. There's a ranch I knew once. Lady named Willa runs it now. No kids of her own, but she took in strays before." Clara frowned. "But Tommy's sick. We'd wrap him in 3 blankets." "Ride slow. He'll make it." Clara stood, suddenly stubborn. "No," Jed blinked. "What?" "You can go. You can ride away. But Tommy and me, we don't leave each other. He won't make it, not out there. Not in the cold." Jed stepped closer. "He might not make it here." "I know that," she snapped, voice cracking. "But this is the only place we ever knew. And I won't let him die scared in the woods." Her hands balled into fists. "We stay." Jed saw it then, not just the fear. The defiance. The iron in her spine. She wasn't surviving. She was fighting. And that made her braver than any man. He knew. He sighed, stepped back, and said, "Then I stay too." She looked at him, surprised. "I don't want no charity." "It ain't charity if it's a promise," Jed replied, "and I keep mine." Outside, the wind howled louder, but inside, two kids sat wrapped in a blanket and a cowboy leaned against the stable wall, one hand on his holster, the other resting near the warmth of a small oil lamp. They didn't know it yet, but something was changing, not in Dustwater, but in them. The fire cracked quietly, flickering shadows against the wooden stable walls. It was the first time in years Jed Carter had built one, not for himself, but for others. The small flame, shielded by bricks and fed slowly with broken furniture and old fence wood, gave off just enough warmth to drive back the night's bite. Clara and Tommy huddled beside it under the quilt, the boy tucked tightly against her chest. His breath was steadier now, his forehead no longer slick with fever. Still weak, still thin, but alive. Jed sat just beyond the firelight. Not in the dark, but not part of the circle either. That's how he lived. Close to others, but always apart. He was whittling a small piece of wood. Didn't even know what it would become. A habit more than a purpose. Something to keep his hands busy while his heart remembered things. It tried hard to forget. Clara spoke softly, her eyes watching the dancing flames. "You ever have a sister?" Yet's hand stopped mid-whittle. The knife hovered, then dropped to his lap. He didn't answer at first. Then, with a voice like gravel soaked in old grief, he said, "Yes, her name was Annie." Clara turned, quiet, waiting. She was younger than me. Smart as a whip, funny too. Used to braid my horse's tail and tell folks it was magic. Said it made the horse run faster. Clara smiled. "Did it work?" Jed chuckled once. "Horse. Hated it. Bucked me off every time." Clara giggled under her breath. Tommy stirred slightly, eyes fluttering open, then closing again. "What happened to her?" she asked, almost afraid to know. Jed stared into the flame. "I was 16. She was 9. Our folks were gone by then. Just the two of us, living on a patch of dry land near Silver Creek. One winter, she caught something. Fever, same as Tommy. I tried to ride for the doctor, but my horse threw a shoe halfway. Had to walk the rest." He paused. "I got there too. Late." The silence after those words felt like thunder. Clara's voice cracked. "I'm sorry." Jed nodded once, jaw tight. "Ain't a day I don't wish I'd gotten there faster." He didn't say anything more. And Clara didn't press. They let the fire do the talking. Let it say the things that were too hard to speak out loud. Sometime past midnight, Jed stood and moved to the doorway of the stable. He leaned against the frame, hat low, eyes scanning the quiet town. Dustwater slept like a dying man. Still breathing, but hollow inside. Every window was dark, every porch empty. But even in stillness, Jed could feel it. Eyes, watching, waiting. He didn't trust Sheriff Griggs. Didn't trust Dustwater. This town wasn't cruel because it had to be. It was cruel because it had grown used to it. A memory hit him, uninvited. Was 9, watching his father beat a mule for stumbling. His mother silent on the porch, staring at the horizon like it owed her something. Jed had tried to pull the whip away. His father turned it on him. "Don't ever pity weakness," the old man had growled. "It'll kill you first." Jed had believed him. For a long time, until Annie and now Clara. A second chance, wrapped in the same stubbornness. The same fire. He walked the perimeter of the stable, checking corners, testing locks. He'd use spare nails from the blacksmith to fix the loose hinge. Stacked barrels near the doors in case someone tried sneaking in. He wasn't just passing through anymore. He was staying. And staying meant protecting. The next morning, as the fire turned to warm coals, Clara woke with circles under her eyes but hope in her chest. Tommy sat up for the first time in days. Jed handed the boy a spoonful of porridge. "Tastes like mud," he warned. Tommy tasted it anyway. "Tastes better than fever," Clara laughed. Jed smiled. For once, he didn't mind showing it. But peace. In Dustwater didn't last long. By noon, word had spread. The outlaw cowboy was hiding orphans in the church stable. The whispers grew into mutterings. The mutterings became talk outside the saloon. Old Mr. Dobbs swore he saw Clara stealing apples. Mrs. Hendricks claimed. Tommy coughed too close to her store. Fear in a dying town was like gasoline waiting for a match, and Sheriff Griggs was a man who carried matches in his teeth. That afternoon, Jed walked into the general store for flour and soap. The room went quiet the moment he entered. People turned their backs. Others watched. Behind the counter, Miss June offered a sad smile but rang him up fast, her hands shaking. "Griggs came by," she whispered. "Said you're interfering." Sighed. "You're dangerous." Jed nodded. "I am. If someone touches those kids." She hesitated, then passed him an envelope. "I found this near the pharmacy drop box. Looks like Clara's handwriting." Jed opened it. A child's scrawl filled the page. "Dear Miss June, thank you for the medicine. I will work it off. I can scrub floors or fix shelves. Please don't be mad. I just didn't want Tommy to die. Love, Clara May." Jed folded the letter, heart aching, back at the stable. He handed it to Clara. She read it quietly and said, "I didn't know where else to go. I just didn't want to owe no one." "You didn't owe me," Jed said. "You still don't." Clara blinked. "Why are you doing this? Really?" Jed looked at her. "Because I couldn't save Annie, but maybe I can save you." Tears welled up in Clara's eyes, but she wiped them fast. "Then we better fix that door hinge better," she said. "Griggs ain't done." She was right. That night, they heard voices outside the stable. Footsteps? A rock thrown at the door. Laughter fading into the wind. Warnings. Jed stood by the fire with his rifle. Clara held Tommy tight under the blanket. And all around them, the past threatened to return, to burn everything down again. But this time, Jed didn't run. This time, he was ready to fight. The next morning arrived with thunder in the distance, not from the sky, but from the town. Dustwater Hollow had reached its limit. Whispers had boiled into voices, voices into protests, and protests into footsteps marching toward the church stable. And at the center of that silent storm stood Sheriff Griggs, leather gloves on his hands and fury under his hat. He was flanked by 2 deputies and 6 townsfolk, farmers, traders, even a few mothers holding their children close as if sickness could leap from the air like wildfire. Inside the stable, Clara sat beside her brother, combing his hair with her fingers. Tommy had color now, strength enough to ask for a second helping of porridge the night before. His cough was still there, but his eyes were clear again. He was getting better. He was surviving. Jed was checking his rifle, quiet, calm, dangerous. He'd seen this kind of build-up before. It didn't matter that they were children. Fear didn't care about that. Fear just needed someone to blame. A rock struck the stable wall. Then another. Jed turned to Clara. "Stay inside," he said. "Don't open the door unless it's me." Clara nodded, but her eyes were wide. "Are they going to take us?" "Not if I have breath in me," he answered. Loading around into the chamber, he stepped outside into the cold. The crowd parted slightly as he appeared, boots slow and steady across the dust. He stopped 10 feet from the sheriff. "Morning," he said. Griggs spat. "You got no right hiding that girl. Or that boy. They don't belong here." Yet's voice was steel. "They didn't choose here. Here just forgot them. They're sick. They're healing. They're trespassing." Jed cocked his head. "So's the wind, Sheriff. You gonna lock it up too?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some smirked. Others frowned. Griggs didn't laugh. "You assaulted my deputy," he growled. He raised a hand to a child. Griggs stepped forward. "This town has order. And you cowboy, you're not." "Part of it." Yet's eyes narrowed. "Then maybe it needs disorder." The sheriff motioned to his men. "I'm placing you under arrest." Behind him, one of the deputies looked uncertain. The other, younger and nervous, kept glancing toward the stable. Jed raised his voice. "If anyone tries to touch those children, they'll answer to me first. You gonna shoot your way through Dustwater?" Griggs sneered. Jed shrugged. "Wouldn't be the worst thing I've done." There was silence. Tense. Thick. Then a small figure stepped out from the stable doorway. Clara. In her hand was a coin. The coin, the one Jed had given her days ago. She walked between them, eyes locked on the sheriff, voice trembling. "This town watched us starve. Watched us beg. You all turned your backs." She held the coin up like a badge. "This was the only help I ever got. From a stranger, not from you." Griggs stepped forward. "Get back in the stable, girl." She didn't move. "No. You think I'm just a problem. But I'm not. I'm a child. And so's my brother. And if being poor makes us dangerous, then maybe you should be afraid." Gasps echoed through the crowd. Griggs turned red. Jed stepped beside her. "Go back inside, Clara." "No," she whispered. "You gave me this coin to save someone. Now I'm giving it back." She placed it in Yet's hand and said, "Use it to help the next one." Then she turned to the town. "If he goes to jail and we're alone again, what happens next time my brother gets sick?" "You'll let him die?" The younger deputy lowered his gun. Miss June stepped out from the bakery, apron dusted with flour. She raised her voice. "She's right." A murmur. Then a man near the back of the crowd, old Mr. Tucker, cleared his throat. "I seen her cleaning windows last winter. For scraps. Ain't never stolen. Just survived." A woman near the schoolhouse added, "She brings her brother to the clinic. Sits quiet for hours. Reads to him. Girl's got more courage than half of us." Griggs looked around, suddenly realizing the tide had shifted. No one's above the law. He barked. Jed stepped forward. "And no law's worth following if it forgets mercy." Griggs raised his rifle. So did Jed. The town held its breath, and then slowly the second deputy stepped in between them. "Enough," he said. "This ain't what we do." "Not here." Griggs turned. "You standing down?" The deputy nodded. "They're kids, Sheriff. And he's just doing what we all should have done a long time ago." Griggs looked at the crowd. They were no longer behind him. He lowered the rifle. He spat again. "Then let them be your problem." He stormed off, coat flapping behind him like a defeated flag. Jed lowered his rifle and exhaled. Clara grabbed his hand. Tight. Tommy ran out from the stable, arms outstretched, and buried himself against Yet's leg. Miss June stepped forward. "They can stay in the stable for now. I'll bring soup." Others nodded. Someone offered clothes. Another offered firewood. No one said it directly, but something had shifted. Jed looked at the coin in his hand. One small piece of metal, but it had moved a mountain. That night the stable was warm, full of blankets, stew, and the smell of fresh bread. Tommy laughed for the first time in a week. Clara sat beside Jed, polishing his boots. He watched her in silence. "You don't have to do that," he said. She looked up. "I know, but I want to." "Why?" "Because you saw me where no one else did." Jed swallowed hard. Clara smiled. "And now that coin, it's not for me anymore. It's for the next kid. The next little ghost in this town." He leaned back and said quietly, "You're not a ghost, Clara. You're the light that scares them away." The wind in Dustwater Hollow was different now. It didn't howl anymore. It sang. It moved gently between the brick and broken boards, humming past saloons and stores, brushing against people who walked a little slower, spoke a little softer, and now looked each other in the eye. And in the stable at the edge of town, beneath a crossbeam still carved with old scripture, the girl who once begged for a coin was waking up to a new kind of morning. Clara opened her eyes to birdsong. Real birdsong, not just the wind faking it. Beside her, Tommy was still asleep, his chest rising steady, cheeks round and flushed with health. The fever was long gone. The cough was rare now. The sky peeking through the window crack was painted in pink and gold. And for the first time in too long, Clara didn't feel like she had to run or beg or worry. She just was. Downstairs, Jed was already up. He always was. He stood by the fence, coffee in hand, watching a group of townsfolk nail a new sign over the old stable, Clara's Rest. She didn't know about it yet. Miss June had come up with a name. She brought peace back to this place, she said. It's only right. Even the sheriff didn't fight it anymore. He was quieter now, seen walking alone most evenings. Thinking, maybe haunted by what he almost let happen. Maybe still learning. Jed sipped his coffee. Boots dusty, hat low. Behind him, Clara stepped out, rubbing her arms in the morning chill. Did I miss breakfast? She asked. Jed smiled. June. Left you some biscuits. Still warm. Clara sat on the rail next to him. You didn't tell me about the sign. He didn't look at her. Figured you'd see it when you were ready. She was quiet for a while. Then, why me? Why not you? I'm just some girl. No, Jed said. You're this girl. The one who gave back the only coin she ever earned. Who faced down a sheriff who saved her brother. That ain't just some girl. She looked away, shy. Then smiled. Later that day, something even more unexpected happened. A carriage rolled into town. It wasn't flashy, just clean, polished wood. But it wasn't like the wagons locals used. This one had gold trim and fine reins, and the man stepping out wore a city hat and wire-rimmed glasses. His name was Mr. Ambrose. He asked for Clara. Everyone froze. No. One wanted to lose her, but he wasn't there to take. He was there to offer. He'd heard about the coin, about what happened in Dustwater. He ran a boarding school far upstate, small, humble, but kind. A place for children with nowhere else to go. He wanted to meet Clara and Tommy, see if they'd want to come live there. Not adoption, he said gently, but opportunity. Clara asked Jed if it was a good idea. Jed didn't answer right away. Then, it's up to you. But if you go, you'll be safe, you'll grow, and I'll still be here, always. Tommy was already clinging to Ambrose's leg. He liked the man's mustache. Clara looked down at the coin. She still had it. It wasn't really about money anymore. It was a memory, a key, a promise. She looked up. I'll go, but I'll come back. Jed tipped his hat. I'll be waiting. 1 year later, Dustwater was different now. Not richer. Not fancier. Just kinder. Little boys swept the porch of the bakery. A girl read to her little sister on the chapel steps. And near the stable, a new sign had been added beneath the old one. Clara's Rest, no one goes hungry. It had become a shelter. Run by townsfolk. Staffed by volunteers, Miss June baked bread. Every morning, the old blacksmith fixed shoes for free. And once a month, letters arrived from upstate. Clara wrote about her studies, her friends, the garden she planted with Tommy. She said the soil was softer there, the sun warmer. But nothing ever felt as real as Dustwater. And then one